Take two. I already filmed this video, and then basically the footage was too long, I was too rambly, I didn't like any of it, so I decided to scrap it and just redo it. I had like two goals basically, or I guess three goals technically. One was to try to post twice a month about my reading journey. I'm gonna try to be better about that. Two was to not buy any more new books, and I've already failed that. But I failed it, I think, is in a good way. I started a not a writing group, I started a reading book club thing with my friends. And because it's like community oriented, I don't have all the books we've selected, and that's okay. I'd rather just spend the money to talk with my friends about books. Number three was essentially to read one new book every week. So at this point in time, I'd ideally have read 12 books off of my TBR bookshelf, but I have 8, and then one was an audiobook, so really 7 came off my TBR shelf. But that's okay, small wins. I'm very happy with the books I've read. I've read a lot of different genres. We have novels, contemporary, classics, history, memoir, all the things. So yeah, I think we'll just get started. The first book had a kind of an uphill battle because the last book I read in 2024 was my favorite. So I kind of felt for this book because it kind of really had to work hard, but I think it mostly delivered, and that is The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. This is a story that follows two siblings over 5 decades. It explores essentially this idea of codependency, expectations that our family puts on us, and also this central idea, I think, of forgiveness. Do we forgive? If we do, how do we do it? Is it possible? Who is forgiveness for, right? Is it for the other person or for ourselves? It is told through the perspective of the younger brother, Danny. And essentially, Danny is surrounded by all these different women in his life, the most prominent being his older sister, Maeve. She's about 5-ish years older than him. And I think the book starts when he's about 5 or 4. So she's like 10. And their mother leaves them. And that is kind of the jumping off starting point. And it ends when they're in their 50s and 60s, essentially. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but it revolves around this incident with the Dutch house that they grow up in. Patchett describes the Dutch house in a very interesting way. It was kind of like mysterious. I couldn't actually fully picture it, but whenever I did, I pictured like this museum-like quality. And I think that really does come across because even though the Dutch house is the house that they grow up in, it is a house, it is not a home. And it kind of creates that distance for us in the reader. Also, I think I'll put the book right here. It's like one of the books that I grabbed because I thought the cover was it captured me. Like I really did judge the book by its cover. I thought it was well done. I think if you are interested in stories about like family arcs and growth and do people change, how they change and whatnot, I'm not going to say it's my favorite book I've ever read. I do think though this is a book that my perspective on it is going to change over time. Like as the age I am as the characters now versus 10 years, how I'm going to read it. I think this is a good one. I think I'm going to be able to revisit and gain a lot of it. I gain a lot from it, from those rereadings. I'll also say this is a book about eldest daughters, right? Even though Danny is telling the story and he's our narrator, it is about his older sister, Maeve, who he loves deeply and cares for, and I would say is the person who's always been there for him, but also he almost doesn't understand her. And he can't really understand her because he's not ever been in the roles or positions that she's always been put in. And as I'm not an only child, I have only a twin brother, but I am the eldest / only daughter, and I really felt for Maeve. It was really impactful, and there's a few scenes that I can think of right now that were cathartic, I would say, for me. So if you're interested in like character development and growth, and also it's like time period I'm trying to remember, it's kind of like the major meat of the story is like 60s, 70s, which I thought was really interesting. I think they're in Pennsylvania most of the time, but Maeve also lives in New York, so it's like I thought it was like an interesting dissection of that. So that was the first book. I think it was a strong start. Next is a book that I started 2 years ago, and I just never finished it. And I wanted to finish it, and I finally got back to it. I was like, okay, I should, if I'm trying to read through this bookshelf, I need to start with the books I've already started. And that is When They Call You a Terrorist, by a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Khan Coolers and Asha Badale. I love memoirs personally. I'm like a journaler. I love this idea of reflecting on your past and learning from it and kind of being able to see things from a new lens or perspective. So usually memoirs are it's a genre I really love. I don't know if the book came out in no, it must have come out in like 2019, because I remember going to my college had Patrice Concolors come and speak, and it was pre-COVID. So it had to be like 2019, 2018 when the book was written, I'm assuming. Picked it up in like post 2020. Like I had it because I went to the thing and I thought it was cool to see her speak, but I didn't read it for a while. Editing Morgan here. I just looked it up. Apparently it came out in 2020. So I don't know why I had seen her in 2019. And maybe she was promoting the book, and that's why I picked it up. I don't know. It says it came out in 2020. So just a little edit. The first part of the book is about her childhood. It is about basically how she learned how to become an organizer. I know that it's by Patrice Khan Coolers and Asha Badale, but like it really does like focus on Khan Coolers experiences in her childhood. Her recognizing how systems are set up against Black people in America, and what are some like tangible ways you could do something about it, essentially. Part 2 is more about Black Lives Matter and how that organization was formed and created. I know since this book was published, I think BLM has like had like a change in the head, like the head of the organization. There was some sketchy stuff I saw on TikTok. I'll see if I can link it below. But I think I think organizing is this thing that we hear a lot about, especially right now in this political moment. It's like, go out and do something, figure out how to do something. But a lot of people don't have, like, it feels very overwhelming and you don't know where to start. And I think a memoir about an organizer is like a really good place to start, because you can see, I know a lot of it is intentional and a lot of work is put into it, but I think there's something about watching the organic relationships that Con Coolers forms with other people and like creating the network, right? Because that's essentially how organizing works so well. You create a network and you come together to build something, or to do something, build or do something, whatever it is, right? Memoirs are a great way to look at experiences that are so different from your own. I think for people, like, if you don't know what BLM is, I know it feels like, oh, we're way past that, like it's 2025 maybe, but like there's no shame in not knowing something and wanting to learn more. And I think that would be a good place to start. So I would recommend the book. But I do know like a lot of things have changed, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's like an updated edition, or maybe she's written another book. I haven't looked into that, but that's a possibility. From there, I decided to continue on my path of the half-read books. Something about me, I teach night classes at a university, writing. It's not my main job, but it is like something I'm very passionate about and I love to do. And so the next book I was reading on and off, and I've finally finished, is The Anti-Racist Writing Workshop, How to Decolonize the Creative Classroom by Felicia Rose Chavez. So because I'm a writing instructor, it is really important to me that I'm in a space has been made from a predominantly white patriarchal mindset or thought. And so like to be in the classroom space, it is my job as the instructor to try to decolonize the way I teach things and help my students decolonize a lot of the brainwashing isn't the correct term, but kind of, but like the preset things that they know about school and education. And I also think writing is a very fraught thing. Many of my students feel very comfortable telling me how much they hate it. and how much they don't like it, and how they, I don't know if they'd say it's stupid. Some, I'm sure, think it's stupid, but they understand that it's important, but they don't like to do it. They don't want to do it. I would say pedagogically, this gave me a lot of good, like, hands-on things I can do in the class. There's a lot of things, and that's partially why I didn't read it, like, consistently, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pull from this, I'm gonna pull from this. The main thing, and I will note that she is writing from the perspective of creative writing. So not necessarily to, like, in the argumentative rhetoric, if like that kind of writing, but I still found the advice in here very helpful. That it basically to allow my students and my writers to have more agency over their work and not feel like they're being told that what they're writing is bad, but more like, oh, I see this idea and this thing that you're doing, and this is how your audience can feel if you tried this or this or this. So it gives them more like flexibility, which I feel like a lot of them feel like writing can be really rigid. So I enjoyed this book, and I think if you're an instructor who teaches writing or an instructor who has their students write a lot, this would be something to look into. So kind of sticking, so I did that book, and then I read this book because basically January happened and everything scared the shit out of me. And I've been seeing this book and I've been wanting to read this book anyways. And I already had it, so I was like, okay, I just need to read it. And it's On Tyranny: 20 Lessons from the 20th Century from Timothy Snyder. You've probably seen this if your algorithm's anything like mine on TikTok. Talking, and Timothy Snyder is a history professor at Yale University, is what I'm trying to say. And essentially he studies and focuses on fascism and authoritarian governments or dictatorships. And he examines history and basically says these are the things you can do to like stop or try to, or things that we need to do to in order to stop or prevent fascism from taking root. A lot of people might say it's too late, and in a lot of ways I agree. But I think I wanted to read it because it, you know, when things are happening and you feel like you don't have anything, you can't do anything, I find reading to be a comfort. Another nice thing about this book is it's really, really digestible. I think Snyder does a really good job of distilling history and making his point clear to his audience. But the first one that was going around TikTok, I think a lot, was do not obey in advance, right? Like don't obey things that the government or a fascist dictatorship wants from the citizens before it even becomes law, right? Or like don't capitulate early. I think since I've read this book, I've heard that Timothy Snyder has left the US, which is a scary thought. And I think there's a lot of people are interpreting that like he knows that it's time to flee and he's got to go. And there's a grain of truth to that for sure. But I think considering his public image and the work he's done, academics are often like the first targets of an authoritarian or a fascist government, I'm just gonna say, because I can't say that word right now. And I think that's a safety precaution and something we as citizens who are still here need to be not only mindful of but keep track of. And I found this, though it is kind of scary to think about, I found this very helpful and also a good grounding thing to think about, right? Like how we need to like protect our public broadcasting, and how we need independent media and journalists and like all these different things. It was short and digestible, so I do recommend it. Although I'm sure there's a PDF somewhere on it because everyone has been reading this one. I obviously needed something else to kind of like, palate cleanse might be a bad word to use, but honestly palate cleanse because that felt really heavy. I read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Elizabeth Gaskell is a writer during the Victorian era in England. North and South is published in the late 1950s, not quite, or not 1950s, 1850s, 1860s. She is right after the Brontes, kind of, if you have any concept of like the canon in that sense, or the literary canon in that sense. On Netflix, there's a BBC, I think it's a BBC miniseries on North and South that I had watched years ago, and I really loved it. And I decided to try to read it. Some background: what the book is about Margaret Hale, who is from the South. She is from a gentle family. Her father is a rector, and but her father essentially has a midlife crisis, and like, I shouldn't be doing this, I want to leave the church. And I don't mean leave the church like atheist, doesn't believe in God. I don't think that would have flown then, but like, essentially he felt that his life calling was to be a scholar, and he shouldn't be here preaching, and he's got to leave. And he takes a job up north, in the north of England, to be a tutor for this rich, wealthy industrialist, or mill owner, I should say. Some context: this is like Industrial Revolution. This is also the time of the dying aristocracy in England. And what I mean by dying is basically their money was not being generated via land anymore, right? Their tenants and their farmers, all the money was going to factories and buildings. So the aristocracy, like, basically, England's having like, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but a class crisis, because the wealthy people are these poor people who worked their way or own these mills, right? But they are not noble. They are different. They're still distinctly different from us. Margaret Hale moves up with her father, and she finds the North oppressive, dirty, and her father's tutee, I guess, is Mr. Thornton. He is the owner of one of the mills, and Mr. Thornton is everything that Margaret despises. He's vulgar, he is big, brawny, he's not a gentleman in the sense of the word that she knows, and he is too rough for her, right? Thornton sees her as a lady, sees her as this like romanticized version of the women from the South, right? And he is, I don't want to say immediately in love, but he's immediately immediate attraction, right? He really has like a very tender feeling for her, and she is uncomfortable. She doesn't like him. And while that is essentially the love story that is going to be playing out throughout the book, it is also a commentary on class, but also workers' rights in England. Elizabeth Gaskell, I wouldn't go as far to say that she is a communist, but she is definitely for workers' rights. And so interwoven with this like love story is the mills versus the workers, and what does essentially justice or equity mean? How can we have a fair living? And both sides won't listen to each other. Ultimately, not to spoil anything, but like, you know, the capitalism wins, but there is some concessions that are made. And the concessions are also made with Mr. Thornton and Margaret Hale, which kind of builds the romance. And also, like, I would say, like, Mr. Thornton kind of is the blueprint for the romance novels, right? The historical ones. He is yearning. He is in love, and everything means so much. He wants, and he just admires her so much, but he knows she hates him, and it kills him that she hates him. And it's, if you like that kind of, and Margaret, like, she is like fascinated by him, and she's very uncomfortable that she's fascinated by him and his opinions, and she kind of doesn't recognize her feelings. It is like a miscommunication trope, but I think can be forgiven, because like, to speak so bluntly would have been extremely revealing. So I would recommend it. I think it is a thick book, so take your time. But I don't. The language Gaskell uses, I feel like, is very accessible. So I would definitely read this. I loved it, and I think it was actually very relatable to the workers' rights conversations we're having right now. Next, I'm going to talk about these two together because I read them back to back, and it's essentially part one and part two. But it is Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. So I read Parable of the Sower in the book club, and it was great. It's a dystopian, slightly dystopian novel. It's the series was written in the 1990s, and it is in the near distant future of the 1990s, meaning that it's set for 2024. So it was last year the book was supposed to start. And basically climate change has devastated the world. The government that the US has in the book novels has destroyed the economy, has destroyed many things. Safety is not insured. It is a scary telling of the telling of the future, or of a would-be future. I'll say trigger warning for both of these books for every type of abuse or violence you can think of. I do not say that to scare you, but to brace yourself. And I, unfortunately, that is just kind of like the reality in which she's seeing how the violence of the government and the society, how that like turns on its people. It follows Lauren Olomina, and at the beginning of the book I believe she's 15, but for most of the book she's 18. And I don't want to give a lot away, but she is forced to leave her home due to circumstances, and she has a goal and an inner mission to start this new way of life, and essentially a religion called Earthseed. And the main premise of Earthseed is that God is change and change is God, and that the only constant thing in the world is that things are going to change, and the best way to survive is your ability to adapt. I don't want to give any more away. The book was very good. So good that I began to listen to Parable of the Talents on my morning drives, or my morning drives to work and back. Parable of the Talents, I think, is going to be in my top 10 favorite books. It was so good and I think so beautiful. The series is really about community and the human ability to endure hardship, and in despite of like in spite of like everything crashing down on you, government, people, money, conditions, anything, but you how humans will still work towards something for something better. I highly recommend it. Like I said, though, I would trigger warning for both of the books. They are both extremely violent, but I feel like it has added so much to my understanding of like science fiction or dystopian work even. I feel like science fiction kind of gets a bad rep, or you really do think everything's in space. Not that like space is bad, that's totally fine. But if you think you don't like science fiction, I would read these books, because you probably just need to broaden your understanding or idea of science fiction. The next book, or the last book I read for the month, I read because me and my boyfriend were going to go see the play. And I had read the book in college and I didn't finish it. I don't think I finished it, but I loved the movie adaptation. So I was like, I'm going to give it another shot. And that is Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. I was floored by this book. The book was so good. I forgot how good it was. Or I forgot like I don't know why I didn't like it when I was younger. I do think there is something, and this is why I believe in rereading, because when you reread something, the older you are, the more understanding you have, things just hit different. And I thought it was great. It was beautiful. It is a story about Jane Eyre, who is a orphan, and she gets placed in a child home care essentially by an aunt who disowns her, and she grows up to be kind of this odd, peculiar, very smart, accomplished young woman, and she goes off to be a governess at Thornfield Hall. And the owner is Mr. Rochester, who is a mystery, intriguing, and stimulates all of her thoughts, and he's just a diverting character. What I really loved about the text is you can really see them fall for each other through their conversations and through the intellect. I think if you've seen the movie version with Michael Fassbender and Mia Walla, I can't say her last name, but I'll insert an image or something. If you've seen that and you liked it, but you haven't read the book, you read the book. You'll love the book, because I love that adaptation and I love the book. I don't want to give away. I think like I was just really surprised though about Jane, because like I feel like in the movie she's much more reserved, and when I remembered reading it when I was younger, I didn't like she's kind of funny, or she's like very, dry sense of humor. I found her extremely entertaining. I think that's actually, if you want to start reading like classics, I know I think the common thought is to start with the newer classics and work your way back. So I think for right now, that might be like Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, maybe Henry James. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like that's a common thing I hear about if you're trying to read classics to work your way back. I think Jane Eyre is actually pretty digestible. North and South is more digestible, though, so maybe read North and South, and that makes sense because North and South came later, so it's closer to our time. I mean, only I think they're only like maybe 30 years apart, so it's not crazy. But North and South, and then Jane Eyre. But I would read Jane Eyre. It's so good. Those are the 8 books that I read. I'm really excited for my TBR for April. I'll kind of give you guys like a little sneak peek. Do I have them? Well, there's like basically 2 books I'm currently in the middle of, or just, there's one I already finished, but another one that I really want to read is The Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Reese. And this is a spoiler for Jane Eyre, so if you don't want to be spoiled about what happens in the book, stop now, leave. Thank you for watching. Bye. But Wide Sargasso Sea is a retelling of Jane Eyre, but from the perspective of Bertha, so Rochester's wife who's in the attic, right? And I think I've had heard about that book like forever ago, and I bought it, and I was like, but fuck, I'm gonna have to read Jane Eyre. But now that I have, I'm like, great, I can now read that book. So that's the thing I'm really excited to read. And yeah, so hopefully I keep up with these videos. We shall see. If you stayed and watched, thank you. Have a good April. Stay alive. It's crazy out there, guys. It's fucked up.